Hi, I'm Alan Hedblum. Welcome to our show, a place to feel like you belong. Our guest today is Ray Nadda. Ray is originally from Lebanon, one of the jewels of the Mediterranean. He grew up speaking Arabic, French, and then English. As a young man, he came to the U.S. to study, fell in love with the American enterprise system, stayed, and became a U.S. citizen. Today, he is a husband, father of two, and owner of Wash and Wag's pet grooming salon in Standale, Michigan. Ray, welcome to Feel Like You Belong.
Thank you, Alan.
So tell me about growing up in Lebanon. What are your fondest memories of those days?
Well, for me, I grew up during the wartime, so I was not able to explore the whole country and see the beauty of it. We were limited to the area we lived in, but it was still a lot of good memories, a lot of good friends. I was fortunate enough to grow up in a neighborhood with close to a dozen boys, all the same age. Okay. We all went to the same school. All of our parents were friends. We did everything together from the day we went to school till after school till the weekends. For some reason, there were no girls at the time. It was just all boys. There was one girl, but she was like one of the boys as well. And it was a lot of fun, a lot of memories, and I'm still friends. I'm still in contact with most of the folks that I grew up with.
Okay, that's awesome. Now, in an earlier conversation, you had mentioned that you weren't a really great student, but you have always had this entrepreneurial spirit. Can you tell us some examples from your childhood? As
a student, I never liked to study. I never liked to sit down and study. I always felt school was very difficult, and going to a very strict Catholic school didn't make things any easier. So during the summertime, we decided we wanted to try something to keep ourselves occupied, and one of my close friends and I opened up a small shack selling candies and sodas and sandwiches because there wasn't anything close to the neighborhood. So we would hitch rides with somebody to go to the market and buy things wholesale and then retail them at the local level. And that was my first try into entrepreneurship.
Sure,
yeah.
Sure. And then your dad, who was working for 3M at the time, got transferred out of Lebanon to work in, was it UAE?
Kuwait, actually.
Oh, in Kuwait.
In the beginning, yes.
Okay, okay. And then you picked up your life, your family, and moved to Kuwait, and you started, I think, you started studying English?
Correct. I had studied English in Lebanon in the school system, but only 1 or 2 hours a week. I didn't really pick up more English until I went to Kuwait, and at the time I was almost a sophomore, the equivalent of a sophomore in high school. I went to a French school there. The transition was very hard. I had lost all my friends. I went to a new country where I didn't have any friends at all. Different culture, different religion, different people, different atmosphere, different weather. And we went from beautiful Lebanon weather to 120 degrees in the shade Kuwait weather. So it was very difficult, very strict country. You couldn't even hold hands with a girl in public. It was a very, very difficult time for a 15-year-old transitioning. So it affected my grades in school as well. But then I switched to the American school system, and things blossomed from there. I enjoyed it. It was designed more, I found out that it was designed more to help you succeed versus the French system. They tried everything to do everything possible to make you fail. And once I latched on to the American system of education, things moved on quite rapidly, and I graduated with the typical high school diploma, just like they would if they went to school here in the U.S.
So it was really this American high school in Kuwait that made you decide to go look for colleges in the U.S. rather than in France.
Correct.
Because you were really fluent in French.
Yes, and I'm still fluent in French, but the high school degree would have helped me a lot more being in an American college versus a European type school. So that's what I ended up doing, and I applied to several universities here in the US, and I was accepted in several of them, but I ended up choosing Bradley University in Peoria, Illinois, out of all places in the world.
So after you had mentioned earlier, you had done a degree in finance at Bradley, and then had a series of jobs throughout corporate America, but then you made this discovery that you were really suited, you're not suited to work for somebody else, you're really suited to be self-employed. How did that work?
It took a lot of tries before I discovered that. One of the things I found out is that when I started my career in sales, I was very successful. I was working for myself pretty much, but for someone else. But I made my own success. And the minute I was promoted to management, this is when I realized that this is not suited for me, because the people that were working under me, they weren't working with the same work ethic that I was working. And it was difficult because my superiors wanted me to push harder, and the people working, my direct reports, wanted me to back off. And I was stuck in the middle, and I realized there's a lot of people out there that don't want to work. They just say they do, and it makes them look good when they say they do, but when it comes down to it, they don't want to work hard. And after the last company I worked for, I realized I did not want to do this anymore. And it didn't help that being a district manager, I was doing a lot of travel, so that kept me away from my family, from my kids. I was gone 2-3 days a week, every single week, and it wasn't just about the job anymore. I was spending so much time for someone else rather than myself. And an opportunity came in to have my own business. I had already experimented with that a few years prior, and so I had a better idea of what to look for the second time around, and it worked out.
So, and now you have this pet grooming salon, Wash and Wags, which the crew has already said is a great name. So, it's a good marketing or good branding on your part. Tell us about Wash and Wags.
Well, Wash and Wags has been around for about 15 years. The lady that started it before me, I can't take credit for the name.
Okay.
So somebody else started it. I can take credit for the logos and for the marketing that we've done, because I purchased the place about a year ago and transformed it completely. And on the 1-year anniversary of my purchase, we signed an agreement to open a second location in Wyoming, and we hope to open that one in October 6th. So that's the anticipated plan. And eventually we'd like to open several more in the West Michigan area. I think we bring something to the customer that no one else does in that industry, which is very unique. Most of the grooming shops are individuals working out of their home or single one-person shops, so they are very limited to what they can do. We do it a little differently. We have 6 or 7 groomers, so we can always take people in the same day. We can get them in the next day. We focus a lot on customer service. The fact that I'm not a groomer allows me to be behind the desk focusing on what the customer needs and making that experience a happy one for them and for their pet, and let the groomers do what they do best, which is groom, while I can focus on everything else. Unfortunately, most of the groomers in the area are not business people. A lot of them went to school to be groomers, and they have to focus on the grooming, and the type of industry it is, it doesn't allow them too much time to focus on growing their business. So they are very limited, with the exception of a few shops in the area. Most of them are pretty limited, and they're one-person operation.
Mm-hmm. So what is the vision for Wash and Wags?
Well, our grand vision is to be the place to go if you need your dog groomed, to be the first one you think of. And we want to keep our rating as high as possible. Right now we do 0 advertising, which is something different than what the previous owner did. And we found that we get a lot of new customers because of our rating online, and because of our word of mouth, that people recommend us. So we're very excited about that. And like I said earlier, it would be nice if we can have several locations within the Grand Rapids area, even within a 30-mile radius of Grand Rapids, and maybe make this a place for any new entrepreneur / groomer that would like to have their own shop but maybe can't afford to have their own. Would be a great stepping stone for them to come in, get trained, and then they would be able to start managing their own shop on their own.
And for any small business person, the initial setup costs, building and equipment, everything is can be quite prohibitive.
Correct.
So that would be a great help for them to get started too.
Yeah. And we have a setup now, almost a system where we can get started for lower cost because we can leverage our buying power, we can leverage our inventory, we can leverage our labor, because the employees can shuttle between one or other stores if they're needed to cover when somebody's sick and when somebody needs vacation.
Fantastic. So it's really a network of,
correct.
Of businesses, absolutely. So we were talking about this earlier, and for some people who are out in the international community, they know that a lot of Arabs are not comfortable with dogs, right? And so, in fact, when I first learned that you were from the Middle East, I thought, oh, that's interesting. You're working with dogs all the time. Yeah. But you were explaining how that works. Some people are and some people aren't comfortable. Can you share that?
Correct. Culturally, people don't, unlike the US where you see a dog, you walk up to pet it. Over there, you see a dog and you're always wondering, is it going to bite me? Maybe because not too many people own pets, and those that do buy them for protection more than being a pet. So
if you encounter one on the street, it might be a stray.
Correct, and so that's another thing you want to be careful with. While here, it's totally different, and I have my own pet, obviously, and we see pets in a totally different light. That has changed quite a bit from my understanding. Now, I have not visited Lebanon in over 14 years, but from what I understand is now almost every household has a pet. Grooming shops are popping up in different places. Pet stores are popping up in different places. So it's definitely a change of culture as they become more and more westernized over there.
So, and if for some Arabs, it's still uncomfortable for religious reasons.
Correct. Cats are okay, but dogs are not. For some folks in the Muslim culture or the Muslim religion, they feel that where a dog is, it becomes a dirty place where they're not able to pray. So that's part of it too. And I'm not an expert at which sect of Islam believes that, or why they believe it, or who doesn't believe it. But I understand, because I have some Muslim friends that do own dogs, and I have some that will not go anywhere where there is a dog. Sure. So that's the difference.
Sure.
Yeah.
And I think even as you get more comfortable or get more knowledgeable about looking at different denominations within another religion like Christianity, you see that certain people have stricter practices and or more flexible
Correct.
Practices. So that's really important to understand. As a person who has adopted the U.S. as a new home, is a question with two sides. First of all, what really works for you in the U.S.? What's you really like about being here?
Well, I feel like I belong. I mean, truly, I do belong. This is where I want to be. I like the freedom. I like the fact that I can do anything I want to do. And if I need to get something done, I can get it done. There are avenues, there's resources, there are things that the political red tape and the bureaucratic red tape in the Middle East is dreadful. Sometimes I have to deal with the local embassies just to get a piece of paper signed. When my kids were born, I just want to make sure they're registered. And it is a nightmare. It is a total nightmare. And unless you know someone who knows someone, you have to go through a lot of hoops. And that's the part that I don't care about, because in the US, it doesn't matter. If you're going to go get your driver's license renewed, you're going to get it renewed no matter what. You don't have to know the clerk behind the desk to get your driver's license.
No bribing.
Renewed. Yeah, there's no bribing. Same, and especially with the immigration service, it is such a straightforward process. Either you qualify or you don't qualify. It doesn't matter who you know. If you're eligible for your citizenship, you're going to get it. So it may take you 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, but eventually you're going to get it.
It's really a country of systems. There are
Correct.
Laws in place, and Americans are big rule followers. Maybe a little bit like our German forebears.
That's very true. And I think part of it also for me is to say that you want to belong, you have to acclimate yourself, and you do have to leave some things behind. That is harder for some than others. I have relatives and friends that are still thinking that one day they're going to go back to the Middle East or to their home countries, and they're always thinking about that in the back of their head. If they buy a gadget, they're thinking, how would I take it back with me? Or if I buy a car, will it sell over there if I take it with me? Or things like this, and I don't think about that at all. I have no desire to go back and live there one day. And if I do, then I'll deal with that at that point. But I think being able to bring the best of the culture, whatever culture you're coming from, and taking the best of that, and so your kids can have something to hang on to, and enjoying what your new home has to offer, and mixing the two is probably the best of both worlds.
Sure. Flip side of that question then, what do you really cherish about Arab culture?
The food is probably the best. I miss that a lot. Luckily, Dearborn is not too far away, so in 2 hours I can go have some of the best food in the world. But in reality, I miss the hospitality. I miss the social aspect of it. I miss the love that people have. And I know that sounds a little different considering all the current things going on in the Middle East from political perspective. But Middle Eastern people or Arabs in general, are very, very loving people, very hospitable to others, and they are very welcoming people. So that's something that's hard to describe, and I miss that piece of it. And I think as a Western society, we're a little more hands-off, a little less touchy-feely. We do care, but it's a different way of caring.
Less physical demonstration of those connections.
Correct.
Yeah, we're more Northern European than Mediterranean. So,
correct.
You know, the Southern French, the Spanish, Italians,
the Greeks, yes,
and wrapping around to
even
to
South America too. So
sure. Yeah, absolutely. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, our time has flown by, but it's been a real delight having you in the studio today.
Well, thank you so much for inviting me.
Thank you for coming. And for those of you at home, stick around, and in just a moment, we'll share some tips with you on American English, culture, and humor.
Maria Foley is a Canadian blogger who lived overseas with her family for several years. During that time, she wrote many funny blogs about the mistakes she made while living in Australia, France, and Singapore. From her experience, she developed a list of tips on how to be a really terrible expat. First off, she suggests don't waste your time doing research about the country you're moving to or its people. After all, the country's history and cultural values aren't really important, and those cross-cultural training companies are just trying to take your money. Something else you should do is isolate yourself. If you lock yourself up in your overseas condo, you don't have to deal with those silly local people. Spend all your time at the exclusive expatriate club in town, so you can criticize the locals with your fellow expats. Next, show off how much money you really have, especially if you live in a developing nation. Your wealth will show the locals that you are someone important and to be admired. One more tip I'll leave you with. Speak your native language the whole time, especially if it's English. The locals will have to get used to the fact that your language is the global language of business and of educated expats everywhere. Would you like to learn more tips about becoming an ugly expat? Visit our blog page called What's Up, where we'll give you more tips and direct you to Maria's wonderful website.
A Vietnamese, an Indian, a Japanese, an Indonesian, a Malaysian, a Chinese, a Korean, a Mongolian, a Cambodian, a Filipino, a Singaporean, a Burmese, and a Laotian walk into a five-star restaurant. After looking over the group, the maitre d' says, "I'm sorry, you can't come in here without a tie." Now, was that joke funny to you? If not, check out the explanation on our webpage called What's So Funny? After you've understood the joke, practice saying it several times and then go tell it to your American friends. And then please write back and tell us if you made them laugh.